The voice of sharing. Durian ASEAN.
Hello, welcome back to the ASEAN Breakfast Call. Now we're in a session of Myanmar's transition towards democracy with Arlene Tan.
Hi, again.
And of course, we still have two of our very youthful and inspiring guests with us today.
I hope I can be of contribution now.
Definitely you will.
So we'll be talking about a little bit about youth activism, a little bit about how the situation was in Myanmar back then compared to now, especially from Arlene, who was there 5 years ago. So Arlene, you were there. Why were you there?
So 5 years ago, I have no idea what is Myanmar. I was just a young, naive girl, I guess, about the Southeast Asian region. But I applied to this, there was this opportunity in the ASEAN, website where they have this thing called ASEAN Volunteer Program. It's a tripartite between the United Nations, ASEAN, and also the Myanmar government for post-Cyclone Nargis humanitarian aid. So as a volunteer, our role is supposed to be, besides exposure towards the Myanmar culture and people, we also learn about what humanitarian aid is all about. So being there for the first time in Myanmar, that was the first time I ever witnessed how a military regime, run its country. And it's pretty tight, as in, you can see, military signposts in many areas of Yangon as well as in the village area that I went. So, during my time as a volunteer, I was going back and forth in station in Yangon, as well as station in the Irrawaddy region, in the town called Labuta. To go to the town, it is actually a restricted area. So only if you have a pass, as in like you are part of the NGO that is approved by the government, then you can go there. So I work together with this international organization it's a French international organization called ACTED. At that time, people were living in fear. Like, you don't talk about Aung San Suu Kyi. They have a secret code to mention, if they want to discuss about Aung San Suu Kyi. And people don't talk about politics at all publicly. They just don't. People were living in fear. So throughout my time there, I was like, thank goodness I'm a Malaysian instead of living in Burma. That's how I would say the military control, that's how prominent the military control was. Mm-hmm.
So what other observations do you have? Like when it comes to whether is it press freedom, whether is it other?
So when it comes to the press freedom, it is really bad. Everything is being controlled. When I was there, there's only one English newspaper that I know, at least. It's called the New Light of Myanmar. And the news are very propaganda, as in like totally in your face propaganda. I managed to snap a photo of it, and the front page of the news talking about how good the government is in providing all the resources to the government and to the people. And I may quote one of the sentence would be Myanmar has abundant resources to keep good balance among food, feed, fuel without infringe crop cultivation patterns in producing bioenergy. In a sense, they always try to portray how positive the government is. And when it comes to the international news, it's even much more weirder. Like, I observe it daily. Anything that is about China is positive, were positive news, and anything about the US were negative news. It sort of true to the situation in Malaysia as well. I mean, in a sense, about our local politics.
I have a little joke to tell. Like, I have a friend coming from one of the Western countries back then. So the moment he saw our newspaper, like front headlines, he was like, this is not a free country, are you? Because, he was looking at how it was Najib, the prime minister, who was talking about how good he is and whatnot, being the front page, and he immediately said, yeah, in a country with press freedom, this will probably not be the front, the headlines.
Yeah.
It will probably be, some kind of a constructive criticism on like what the policies are, and not, praising the prime minister and whatnot.
It goes towards other areas as well. For example, the youth at that time were very docile, even much more docile than Malaysian youth, I would say. They just keep quiet and just do their own thing. They don't dare to talk about politics at that time, 5 years ago.
So what's the situation right now?
So, I also need to mention that back then, very rarely you see foreigners. So, it is like it's only in areas like in very small pockets part of Yangon that you can see foreigners, and they are mostly people from the embassies. So the current situation right now is totally the reverse, I would say. I mean, you can definitely see democracy is there, but I would say their transition has been, in a sense, much better than us in some ways. For example, I mean, the clearest example would be the youth movement there, from zero to hero, I guess. If you compare it to the Malaysian youth and Myanmar youth right now, I would say the Myanmar youth right now are much more organized, much more enthusiastic and determined in terms of trying to put their foot on hold within the Myanmar politics. For example, I met with a group of young leaders. They are part of this National Youth Congress. And in the National Youth Congress, they have chapters in all the provinces, as in like in all different regions and states. And they are radical, as in a lot of them back in 2011, 2012, when Myanmar started to open up, they participate in movements such as the International Peace Day and all that. And one thing interesting that I found out about the youth there, they don't just focus on activists, as in like training and all that, like what we had a discussion with scholar activism. They go one step or one level further. They are forming youth council, which is equivalent to youth parliamentary, and they are discussing about in formulating youth policy. And this youth policy is not just like a bunch, it's not just a document, but a document that they want the government and also the parliament to recognize, this is our rights, towards it being part of this democratic country. And I think this is something that Malaysian youth can learn.
I'm curious actually, how did they become so organized? Were they, because previously they were very, they did not have any form of Western,
education?
Not education, but more like,
brainwashing.
not brainwashing, but, perspectives at all. They can, because like you said, they only got very, negative media of the US and all that. So how did this came about,
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that, we need to realize about Myanmar is they have a very strong history about youth activism or youth movement back in the days of Aung San, which is the father of Aung San Suu Kyi, and also during the 80s, where the military did a crackdown. And as recent as 2006, the students, together with the Buddhist monks, had participated and held a saffron movement, where a lot of them being detained and tortured. Some may even been killed. So to say that they don't have some sort of knowledge in terms of being a youth activist is partly not true, and they get inspired by their history, by their own history. And the reason why they get organized so fast, within the span of less than 5 years, I guess, since the country started to open up, is also because the government were very encouraging of this youth. It's not a one-way thing. I had a meeting together with other ASEAN participant and Burmese participant with the union minister during the ASEAN Youth Forum. It was very encouraging, even though I would say it is baby steps, but the union minister recognized it is very important to engage the youth and have dialogue with them. What about the youth in Malaysia in relation with the Malaysian government?
Regarding to youths, I'll first start with university students. Activism and political participation among students is seen as a taboo. Because we have this what we call University and University College Act. It says that students, you're not allowed to participate in politics. This was before the amendment in 2012. And even so, despite the amendment, you still see not much students participating. But there is a movement started ever since 2011. The Adam Atlee's incident where he pulled down Prime Minister Najib's flag from PWTC. And before this, before 1969, student movement was very strong, particularly in University of Malaya. People like Kong Kim Hoon, Syed Hamid Ali was prominent names in their student union. They lead, students actually go and campaign in elections. But after that, the government, after the 1969 riots, the government introduced University and University College Act 1971, which slowly takes away the voices of the students.
In the case of Myanmar, right, I was very impressed with the government, as in considering within the short 5 years, less than 5 years time span, they are willing to talk about controversial issues such as ethnic conflicts, and it's not just within the Rohingya region, but also in other regions such as the Karen and the Chin conflicts. And they are open to suggestion of freedom of expression, as well as of thinking of drafting a new constitution. Keep in mind, the last constitution that were drafted in Myanmar was back in 2008. So in that sense, they are thinking of having, even though it is still in discussion, and next year is their election, by the way, and they're thinking of formulating a constitution that is, post-military rule. And I think, looking back at our situation in Malaysia, we can learn a thing or two in terms of how far we want to push democracy. Is it just activism alone? Or, in terms of youth in Malaysia? Or should we be more organized, formulating councils, policies, youth policy, as in not just Malaysian policy, but policy that targeted on youth? And maybe push for areas that people never thought about, such as why don't we amend certain areas in our new in our constitution, which could probably expand the space for democracy.
I personally have one question. I would think that a lot of the ideas that Arlene talk about are really good ideas that we should, perhaps explore it together with Sekolah as well.
Yeah.
And but I personally have one question. Why would the military give up a pretty much dictatorial rule on how they could control Myanmar? Why would they so willingly do that?
I think this is not an easy question to ask, partly because I'm not long enough in Myanmar to know that, but I think partly is because of the international pressure, works of Aung San Suu Kyi, as well as the economic factor. The problem with the military regime, it is there because of General Tan Sui. But after him, a lot of the military sort of generals, I think they realize that they cannot continue with that sort of dictatorial regime. And one way or another, the people are going to, revolt, as in what you seen back in 2006, on the saffron movement. And I think it's a positive, thing for the military regime as well, as in, when you have democracy, you have people participate, in the nation itself. And also you have an economy that is growing and benefiting everyone. I think, in a way, the country will have a better image, within the international community, also within ASEAN. Oh yeah, talking about ASEAN, I think part of the pressure is also by ASEAN themselves in terms of wanting to push for the ASEAN Community 2015, and although they have a sort of a provision of having non-interference within the domestic politics of government, but they also recognize that for them to be taken seriously as a regional bloc, democracy is one of the key area.
However, I feel that in Malaysia's case, our government is not so open compared to the military regime in Burma. Since they seem very supportive in talks, although they went through a very long history, and it was very a lot of violence involved. But the thing is, for me, I personally see that Burma had they could not grow in economy because of they were so inclusive. Whereas in Malaysia, we have a very robust economy, a relatively more robust economy than Burma. So it's easy for our government. It's a bit easier to use the argument that we are developing the country. You don't need democracy. We always have that Asian values kind of thing.
Singapore sort of influence,
exactly, authoritarianism play over here, developmentalism.
Yeah, I think in a way, the transition is made possible partly because of the international and also the regional pressure. There are some skeptics that I know among my Burmese friends saying that, you should take this opportunity. Once the international and regional focus is not there, the military the country might revert back to its original form. So I guess this is an opportunity for the people themselves. I want to give another example of the press freedom there today. I was totally amazed. I saw one newspaper called Myanmar Freedom. This is the first newspaper that I saw, and I was blown away. I mean, considering the last newspaper that I read back in Myanmar was something that is so in-your-face propaganda, and this time, the newspaper, the English newspaper that I read, was the title of the second and third page was about protests and about media freedom. Let me read one of the title. For the second page is ethnic people protest on proposed dams on the Salmi River, and the second was an opinion and the third page was an opinion page called Challenges for Free Press and Ethnic Media. I think I don't think such topics or such editorial write-up would be in our local mainstream media. Or did you ever see before? Like on the second and third page, people talking about protests.
I think a lot of them will be hiding it behind the opinion pages, a little bit of discussions there.
If there is, it will be discounting protests, is it?
Yeah, I mean, talking about free press on the third page, and although it's an opinion page, but it's on the third page of the newspaper, and usually our opinion page will be like almost at the very back, and I think usually it will be like heavily edited by the editors themselves.
Actually, I remember reading the Reporters Without Borders Press Freedom Index. Burma has went up a lot. I think about 50% places up.
Wow, 50
Yeah,
places.
whereas Malaysia is at the all-time low right now.
Really?
It's at its lowest right now.
I remember
God.
seeing something like 144 or something.
Something like that.
Wow.
Although Burma is still below us, it's mainly because reporters were subjected to violence and because there are more, it's a heavier points if the reporters are locked up or has been killed.
Yeah,
or
in a
something
huge country, I mean, they still are in a state of transition in a way.
Yeah, exactly. But it is quite embarrassing to see that Malaysia has fallen so far behind, whereas other countries are doing a lot better.
Yeah.
So what about other transitions when it comes to economy and whatnot?
Economy is between, I would say, interesting, but personally, I won't encourage it because I feel that economically they are moving too fast and they don't have a clear economic plan. Like we have the 9th, the 10th economic plan, but to them when I ask some of the policymakers there, they are quite hesitant to sort of let us know, like, what is your economic plan? What do you plan? What are you planning for Myanmar for the next 5 years or 10 years? They are pretty ambiguous about this. So this is something that I guess I'm a bit skeptic. But in terms of observation, I can definitely see the difference. Back then, there were virtually no cars or very little cars. In fact, because there are very little cars, there's this something that you won't see in Malaysia, but you would see in Myanmar, which is like no horning sign. So you are not allowed to horn, or not, you'll be against the law. But when I come again this year to Myanmar, like everyone is horning. It reminds me like I'm not in Myanmar. I'm probably in Thailand or KL or Jakarta, and it's very congested. In fact, it's extremely congested. I have to highlight one article that I saw from one magazine. It's called Acumun, published in March 2014, and one of the key topic that were being written is cars will destroy Yangon. It says that bus, rapid transit, high vehicle taxation and congestion charges are the only ways to save Yangon from becoming the next Dhaka or Jakarta. One thing I'm impressed is they are actually openly discussing, economic and social issues that would impact the country, and this is encouraging to me. And I agree, if the government of Myanmar do not solve the issue of congestion and traffic jam and over supplying of cars, it would definitely create Yangon as the next Jakarta or Dhaka. Or even KL. KL is very congested. And another new development that I see is the building of high-rise buildings, shopping center, apartments, supermarket. You won't see this typically in Yangon like 5 years ago. You won't see it. 5 years ago, I still remember there were only two shopping malls, and they were like very rundown shopping malls.
So what do you see in the shopping malls now?
It's almost like you are stepping into PJ, where the whole stretch of that LDP road, you have Paradigm Mall, Tropicana Mall, Giant, and a few more malls that is going up. And I mean, to me, I think they are developing too fast.
I'm actually curious. Can the people there actually afford to have that kind of lifestyle there?
That is also, you raise a very interesting question, because some of the Burmese told me that due to this rapid development, prices of the house there has gone up like more than 100%, and people simply cannot afford, living in Yangon. It's too expensive.
In fact, I was speaking to some of my Burmese NGO friends when we met in KL a few months ago, and I was asking them about the same question as well. And what they told me is that simply no one can afford houses or properties in Yangon. In fact, even foreign companies who come to Yangon, they will have to rent hotels because they can't afford. They actually have to rent hotel rooms to operate out of Yangon.
Wow.
That's what companies do.
My
So
goodness.
I was pretty surprised because I mean, I remember asking them about the price. I couldn't remember the price anymore, but it was just crazy. Like, there's no way a person's salary could pay for that kind of property at all.
Yeah, and you must be mindful that their middle class is actually our minimum wage. Yeah, they are being paid like 900 ringgit or 300,000 chat, something like that, for their middle class. So they definitely cannot afford,
I would imagine that Yangon will be pretty quiet then, instead of all the hustle and bustle around.
Yeah. Like a lot of people say, a lot of people associate capitalism with America. Like, if you don't have McDonald's in your country, that means you don't have capitalism. But in the Burmese context, this is something that I coined out myself. I call it Asian capitalism, because even though you don't have McDonald's, American presence is not there yet, I guess, yet. You have countries like China, Korea, Japan, even Malaysia, Singapore, and other Southeast countries investing in Myanmar's economy. So the ASEAN countries' presence is there, like totally in your face.
Which is also worrying in the sense of, especially if Myanmar does not have good economy policy. Again, it goes back to what is the future hold? What does the future hold to all the regular citizens?
That's true. I think that is also one of the key area why the youth there are very radical, as in like their movement, and they want to formulate youth policy. Because one of the issues that were being raised was they don't really have a strong or a good social policy.
Right.
When you talk about social policy, as in like they don't have minimum wage, social safety net, and other policies that will protect the poor in the country.
So yeah, let's talk about some social transformation, if there's any, in Myanmar that happened over the years.
Well, I think what the union minister told us is their focus is on education. So I think that is a positive part of in terms of trying to have greater social policy. But social policy should go beyond just education. It should protect the poor and the vulnerable. And I think so far it is still not there yet. And there were arguments saying that, we cannot have minimum wage because then you would shoo away all these investors and developers. I don't know whether that argument is valid or not, but to me, I believe in basic human rights and basic human needs, and having a minimum wage, especially in countries that is going so fast and having property prices rising up like mad, you need some sort of safety net for these people. In that sense, I feel that socially, these are the challenges that Myanmar government need to consider, and I think they can see countries like Southeast Asia, for example, Malaysia, Singapore, examples of Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, and Indonesia and Thailand, how rapid development without like good social policy has somehow impacted or affected the people. Yeah.
Not enough planning, especially just going out with investments and all that.
Yeah, I think it has to go hand in hand, development and as well as social policy. And also when it comes to development, I think the problem with a lot of the Southeast Asian country, they see it as a positive thing. But I think we should see development as not something that is should be just seen in a positive light. It should be seen as, is it necessary or not to the people?
I think what you're mentioning is sustainable development.
Yeah, sustainable development. I think that is the key word. Do you think Malaysia practice sustainable development? I
think we are trying our best. But it's difficult to undo what we have done.
I come from Penang, an island, right? So we see many, some people criticize it. There's so many high-rise building now, hillside development, as well. We look at sustainable development like building houses. You should build houses for where people stay, not just build houses and just leave it there, because we're facing a issue similar in KL where land property has gone up, right, in terms of price. And you see many of the houses are built nowadays are for the middle class and the rich. And
How much is the price?
Now, if you're going to get a middle class house, 100,000 and above, alright. But what about the low income group?
They have to be like shoo away from the island, I guess, right?
This is the trend that we are seeing.
And not just that, I would actually argue against our government having a lot of sustainable development efforts. Well, I don't know. At least from the point of view of preserving culture and heritage, no. Like we have seen how they have destroyed one of the Buddhist tombs in Kedah area. What I can't remember, but it's
Is it?
yeah.
Lembah Bujang, is it?
I don't know for sure, but what I'm saying is that these are like thousands of year olds, and they were just destroying it as if it's like garbage, to make way for property development. And these are things that could be UNESCO, like heritage city kind of things,
Yeah, I think what I can see the trend within the Southeast Asian region, definitely when it comes to sustainable development, is still not on par to international standard yet. I mean, we can give example of Malaysia, and I can see the trend is sort of usurping in Myanmar itself right now.
And I would also say that I don't know if we are even trying, in the sense of like, because if you look at how we are even, how do I put it, destroying some of our heritage sites in KL, namely some of the Merdeka part of the Chinwoo Stadium and whatnot, and building like a mega story tower, like 100-story mega tower in place of that. I don't know. I wouldn't say that those are sustainable development efforts.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to sustainable development, especially in terms of property prices and in terms of property itself, I think the poor will be the losers in this. Can you imagine, like, most of the jobs are in the urban areas. Like the rich can just, step out from their house, and their office probably would be just next to their house. But for the poor, they have to travel using the public transport, and it costs money, and they have to, and it costs time as well. I mean, can you imagine traveling, for example, the place in Rawang, taking almost 2 hours or 1.5 hours to KL just to go to work? Somehow you need to find parking, you need to pay for the petrol money. The poor and will be the losers in this.
Yeah, I believe in Bangkok it's similar, like 1 to 2 hours. I can't imagine Jakarta, but these are considered like normal, time that you take to get to work every day. Yeah, 1 to 2 hours.
I mean, talking about the Malaysian government, what have they put in place, as in like trying to provide equal access equal access to their job, and also equal opportunity to own homes, in the urban areas. I don't know if the government has put such mechanism in place, and I doubt it. You give example even for the state government of Penang, the poor are being shooed away from the island itself.
I think it's something that the developers keep coming in, and sometimes the state government just can't say no to development, right? But sustainable development is need to be done. Like right now, they're trying to develop mainland more so that people can stay there, and especially the area of Batu Kawan. They are developing low-cost houses there. And recently we just attracted IKEA there as well. The first outlet outside Klang Valley. So only time will tell what Penang will become in the future.
I'll have to add in one of the points of whether is it something that should be taken note by state governments or federal governments is that progress shouldn't be measured in terms of GDP only. Could even be measured in terms of one of the proposals that we had over the last few weeks was gross national happiness.
Yeah.
So
And Bhutan is on top of that, right?
So yeah, that aside, back to the topic of Myanmar's transition. What are other challenges that lies ahead, and what do you think is the way forward?
I think the challenges of Myanmar is definitely the challenges of modernity, because they come from a country that is closed door, and then back in 2011 and 2010 and 2011, suddenly the regime realized that we should open up our country and we should embrace democracy. It's a long and arduous journey, but at the same time, they should learn from other Southeast Asian countries. And I think looking at countries like Malaysia, Singapore, and other Southeast Asian countries, the government should realize that they should put the people first, not development first. And in other words, I feel that even for ASEAN itself as a bloc, the new conversation for ASEAN is not about growth anymore, or it should be about sustainable development. That should be the key word for ASEAN community.
I would like to add as well that Malaysia should be learning from our neighbor Myanmar that change is inevitable. That they had come to the realization that between 2010 and 2011 they need to open up to democracy, and maybe hopefully Malaysia will consider to accept change in their electoral systems, their parliamentary politicians, and all that as well.
Well, any last things to add on, guys? So I personally think that for Myanmar's case, it has been pretty remarkable in the sense of the youth activism that's around and the kind of organization that they got themselves into. Because I remember being part of conferences and whatnot, and talking about how they were trying back then to bring Myanmar youth out of Myanmar to inspire them with hope, that they are not hopeless, and they could do something. And they even brought them to different countries around Southeast Asia. But now it seems that they are inspiring us back.
They are inspiring us.
So I thought that was remarkable transformation there. So
I think the Malaysian youth should definitely gear up themselves. I mean, talking about youth policy is unheard of in Malaysia, I guess.
All right. With that, we shall end today's ASEAN Breakfast Call. Hope to see you again tomorrow. Have a great day.